are back.
Yes.
I think, do we have any more accusers this week of anybody? Anyone newly accused? I'm losing track.
Well, you know, if we're not counting famous people, I think we're in the clear.
Who's the photographer? There's a fashion photographer that got caught up in all this too. Some Vogue guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Accused?
No, like he got. I mean, well, there was the Roy Price over at Amazon got
he got fired. He got
canned. And then the guy from CNN or something, Halperin?
Mark Halperin.
Halperin got blown out.
Was a commentator on a lot of shows, but definitely CNN.
It's kind of amazing the fallout of all this.
In every possible direction, no field of endeavor has been,
but the most important thing is not, is what are you doing going forward to make sure this stuff doesn't happen again? And I think rule number one is going to be, dear directors and producers, no more taking meetings in your hotel rooms.
Seriously. You said it a few weeks ago on the show on Film Week, when the early days of the events.
Yeah.
And you said that the problem is that Hollywood, the film industry, television film, writ large, is just incredibly unprofessional.
It is.
It's not like, I know these problems do exist in lots of
other businesses,
but nevertheless, you're right about that. This is an incredibly unprofessional. People do and say and behave ways in this business that they don't in other businesses.
And it's twofold, actually. The reason, it's sort of threefolds, and one is related to the other one. The first reason is because this was an industry that was started by outcasts, right? I mean, the people who started the film business were, for the most part, Eastern European Jewish immigrants across the board, and a lot of people who were just kind of carny folk in the United States. They came from, the circus circuit, the carnival circuit,
vaudeville,
from vaudeville. Chaplin came out of vaudeville, and Keaton came out of vaudeville, and these are people who are on the margins, right, where you're sort of rejects to begin with. So you don't. The social graces, the business practices, those entrenched sort of institutional behaviors, all that stuff that you see in Mary Poppins, right? The way that he's supposed to behave at the bank, right? It's like the Mr. Banks, that you have to be proper and so forth and buttoned up. And I'm not saying that stuff's good, because that's what Mary Poppins is about how that's just really, I'll stifle you, but a little bit wouldn't hurt. You wouldn't be having people taking their bathrobes off in front of actresses in hotel rooms. Hollywood never had social graces inculcated into it from its founders, because they just weren't those people. And I think that birthed the second problem, which is that we have now people who think that because we're artistic, quote unquote, that we're special. And we don't have to be like, we're weird, we're freaky. I can, I'll walk into a meeting wearing, flip-flops and no shirt. And you have to take me seriously because I'm a director and I'm artistic. And, that's an excuse.
It's a bunch of foolishness. And
it's nonsense.
And if it were ever true, it was seldom true. Yeah. And even then, it was probably still wrong. I think of Hal Hartley. Or Ashby.
Hal Ashby, with the hair and the flip flops,
and he was a groovy guy, an easygoing guy, and not actually earlier in his life he had been very much a suit and tie guy.
Well, the funny thing about Hal Ashby is Ashby's a good example, because yes, Ashby looked like a groovy 60s hippie, but when you were on the set with Hal Ashby, you were on the set with a professional.
Yes,
he was a pro. Just because he had long hair and he looked like a guy who just walked out of Woodstock didn't matter. He worked with you. He was a pro, and he was serious, and he made great movies.
And he wasn't high, and he didn't take advantage, and and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's a lot of what Hollywood did learn how to do over those years is how to put on a suit, and how to clean itself up on the outside.
Yeah,
how to build great facades, really great facades. The facades of the movies, but the facades of Hollywood too.
And and the third thing that I was going to get to is the issue that film productions, despite the fact that you have studios, which are businesses, each film production is its own business.
Yeah.
So you are building a manufacturing business that's only going to last for a few months and then it's done. And so each production it's not like a corporation where it sort of evolves its own culture and procedures and departments and all that stuff over time. It sort of falls together quickly and then it falls apart quickly. And if the chemistry isn't there and people misbehave, then that
doesn't really make any difference because we'll be working for a different company, so to speak.
Exactly.
Next month.
So the long-term accountability is not there. You sort of feel like, hey, I can do anything because there's no consequences. So all of that is going to have to be addressed at some point down the line.
Indeed.
So, Tim, let's get into the meat that we have this week. We got a couple of little. I'll just do a couple of little one-offs here at the beginning. I am not a fan of Slipknot. I don't know if you are into
the band. Oh yeah. Well, you know me, a little hard punk.
But not my thing. I got to be honest. But I'm gonna make mention of it because I know some people are. Got from the people over at Eagle Vision. This is a Blu-ray and CD combo of Slipknot Day of the Gusano. I've not even spent a single second trying to figure out what Gusano means or what it is or why I should care. This stuff's really hard. It's not my scene, but I'm going to let you know it's out there. This was recorded in Mexico City in December of 2015. And it was part of Knotfest, K-N-O-T, not to be confused with Knotfest, K-N-O-T-T, which is a wonderful festival of berries and jams and so forth at Knott's Berry Farm. Anyway, so, there you go, Slipknot, Day of the Gusano, G-U-S-A-N-O. It's kind of creepy.
Alrighty.
And then we also have Richard Simmons, Sweatin' to the Oldies, Complete Collection, 30th Anniversary Edition, out on DVD.
Richard Simmons, who's alive and well, by the way. There were rumors that he wasn't, but he is.
Yeah, that was just so bizarre. Yeah. And I've driven by his house. A couple people take me past his house every once in a while, which is in the Hollywood Hills or Bel Air somewhere. And anyway, so Sweatin' to the Oldies, still fun, still hilarious, and I am a Richard Simmons fan. I will admit it. He had a TV show for a moment. Do you remember that TV show where he would do those weird sketches? And then he'd just help a whole lot of people exercise tell. And then he'd tell. This was the pattern of that show. It would start off with a really wacky sketch, and then you dip in, and Richard is in a room with a whole bunch of people who need to exercise. They're not beautiful people, and almost all women, occasionally men, I think there may have been. And then he would tell them something really heartfelt and sentimental, and there'd be violin music. And then we exercise, and then we'd exercise, and then he'd tell a joke, and everyone would laugh. And then they exercise, and at the end he'd tell them something really sentimental, and he'd wave to the camera, and he'd go bye-bye. And I was like in high school or something, and I remember sitting there and just watching this after school, eating a sandwich or a hot dog or something, and thinking this was a whole lot of fun. And now I look back and I go, what the hell was I thinking? It was the weirdest way to spend my after-school hour. I should have been watching cartoons. Anyway, Sweatin' to the Oldies. The uncut releases of Sweatin' to the Oldies, volumes 1 through 5, all of them on one Time Life DVD set. It's really a whole lot of fun. I got to be honest. The nostalgia factor here is great. It also includes a bonus DVD and a 20-page photo album. And man, are those photographs going to just take you back.
Yeah, wow. Indeed.
All right, Tim, new movies.
There's been a whole lot of Stephen King. The successful Stephen King, which I think is still in theaters now, making crazy amount of money.
Killing it. Yeah, Halloween was good for that movie.
For that movie. Right before that, The Dark Tower came out. Idris Elba, Matthew McConaughey. Didn't do as well.
You and I saw this together.
Yeah, we saw this together in an odd situation, and then I had to talk about it on the show. I think I'm the only film critic in the world who kind of liked this movie just a little bit. We both liked it. We both liked it. There's a certain charm to this movie. Lots of special features on this DVD here.
And you read you're familiar with the book.
The series of books.
Yeah, it's a series of books.
Which is connected to some other books and all these kind of things to go together in a very sort of odd set of ways. To my mind, Idris Elba is just about the best person to play the gunslinger. He looks like the gun, and Matthew McConaughey is actually having a hell of a lot of fun in this movie too, as far as I'm concerned. It gets a little crazy, it can be a little funny, but I kind of dug it, and it definitely followed the book, the narrative of the book, fairly closely. There's a lot more going on in the books, but what goes on in this movie are things that go on in the books.
Well, I never read the book. I was familiar with the fact that this was a thing that they tried for years to get this thing launched, and they finally got it up and running under the direction of Nikolai Arcel, who may not have been the best director for this. He's a European art film guy, but still, I find the story, the world that it inhabits, actually quite fascinating. It's obviously a very, I don't want to give too much away here, but it's there is an alternate universe or an alternate part of our universe where there is something going on, and it's another planet basically.
Yeah. And children are being used to power this event.
And Matthew McConaughey's the bad guy. He's the sorcerer. He's the it's Lord of the Ringsy.
Yeah.
He's the guy who wants to sort of bring the universe under his control, and he controls magic. And then Idris Elba is the gunslinger who is, responsible for keeping this resistance alive that's almost been crushed, and working to kind of liberate all society. It's very Joseph Campbell, right?
Exactly.
To a T.
Hero's journey. It's all that's going on in that movie.
But you know what? It compelled me. I thought Matthew McConaughey was smart casting against type. And Idris Elba just kind of, I'm sorry that his career didn't sort of hit this phase 15 years ago, because it would have been great to have another 50 Idris Elba movies under our belt with his star heft. But he's there. He's arrived, and he's making the most of it. A lot of great stuff on the Blu-ray, deleted scenes and featurettes, blooper reel. And a thing on Matthew McConaughey talking about how he kind of put that character together, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hoop. Kidnap, Halle Berry film. This was terrible. It was really bad. And it was almost at the point of being kind of funny. Louis Prieto directed this film, made a film called Pusher, which is actually a pretty good film, about 2012, 11, 12, 13, something like that. And that was pretty good. This didn't work. Anyway, it is what it says it is. Halle Berry plays his mom. She has this little boy. Little boy gets kidnapped by these people in this car. She's in this minivan, and she goes after them. One of the funny bits is that they're in this Mustang, and she's in this minivan. She can keep up with them in the minivan. And across the arc of most of this film, Halle, because she's in the van by herself, is talking out loud to herself, basically telling us everything that she's about to do. Oh, don't get off the highway. Oh, don't get off the highway. And then she gets off the highway. And it's just, it drove me a little bit crazy. It should have worked, but it just plain didn't. In any case, bonus feature on this, a thrilling behind the scenes look at Kidnap. Wow. Yeah. I got in trouble on the radio because Halle Berry plays a waitress, like a diner, waitress at a diner. And she's in that scene, and she's so beautiful, it's insane. And I'm thinking to myself, if I owned that diner, first thing I'd do is give Halle Berry my diner. Halle, have a diner. You're not a waitress anymore. Let's just hang out. You can have the diner. You just hang out here and do whatever the hell you want. You're Halle freaking Berry. Haven't you looked in the mirror? Anyway, whatever. Silly me.
Well, so Halloween has passed, but we have actually a rather entertaining Halloween oddity here. This is from the people at MVD by way of Cleopatra Records, and it is called Halloween. I kid you not, Halloween Pussy Trap Kill Kill. Now, that clearly is a reference to Russ Meyer and all kinds of exploitation stuff. And yes, this is a little bit of a kind of a nutty insanity. So there's just sort of no way to explain this. It's a complete and total throwback about a girl band which has how would I put this? They have something happens on Halloween, and even though Halloween's out of the way, it's okay. You can this is evergreen. It doesn't have to be watched only on Halloween. Anyway, it's about a girl band that runs afoul of a very bad man, and who manages to put them in a female in jeopardy situation. And from there, it gets very, very. It sort of follows the pattern of the I'll spit on my grave, kind of. Yeah, right. It's one of those. So the cast is just ridiculous. I mean, everybody is in this. I mean, a whole bunch of exploitation and B-level people. Richard Grieco is in this, of all people. I don't know what's happened to his career. He replaced Johnny Depp, and then Johnny Depp became star, and Grieco becomes nothing. And there's the Dave Mustaine of Megadeth has a role to play in this as well. I won't tell you anything else. It's exactly what you would expect from the title: Halloween, Pussy Trap, Kill Kill. It is a throwback tribute to exploitation films of a certain type, and it does it surprisingly well and entertainingly with a good dose of camp. Little quickie somebody threw together here with nobody in it of note except for Luke Goss is Mindblown, which is kind of a, it's rather a silly movie about a bunch of people who are all psychic and can do things with their minds. If you imagine like an action thriller with a bunch of Carries who do what Carrie does only a few times in the movie, like every 5 minutes, that's what this is. It doesn't have enough money to really be as cool as they think it is, but I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. There's your pull quote. I didn't hate it. Wade Major. Wolves at the Door is not my idea of a good movie, but I'll let you know it's there. I don't particularly like the idea of movies about the Manson family, movies inspired by the Manson family. I'm not fond of any of it. I'm skeptical about Quentin's attempt to tell that story. I think it's exploiting a horrible, horrible tragedy, and yet it continues to inspire. So this is Wolves at the Door is inspired by the Manson story. Takes a lot of liberties. It is not literally that story, but it just knowing that makes it a little bit creepy to me. So it's not a badly made film, but I have problems with the subject matter. And then lastly is a movie called Step, which is surprisingly sweet and inspiring. This takes place in Baltimore in the inner city. And it is. This is really. This is quite a really solid movie. It
was a very powerful documentary. Watching those young girls.
Yep. It's it's one of those documentaries. I mean, we've had a lot of those about spelling bees and things, and people finding hope in life through something. But this is really solid. Just how dance and
stepping, which goes back to historically black colleges all the way back to the turn of the last century, and plays a role in their lives and unifies them and gives them something to focus on as they exist in the very difficult sort of urban environment and what's going on in Baltimore. Baltimore, in some ways, is worse than South Chicago.
Far worse, but what's most inspiring about this is not even so much the stepping; it's the camaraderie, the friendship, the sisterhood. Yeah, it's got a lot. It's got a lot going for it.
They got these goals. The goal of the program that those young ladies are in is to graduate from high school.
Yep.
That is like a very, which first of all, consider that. This is like the big goal, to just make it out of high school.
Yeah.
But if they can achieve it, they will achieve something that a whole lot of women from that community, young people from that community, don't achieve.
Yeah. It's good. It's really good. So it's a good, sharp film. Step. And that also includes deleted scenes, director's commentary from Amanda Lippitz, and music video, and a couple of little featurettes, including some rehearsal material. Solid film. You think that stands a chance of an Oscar nomination?
I've been hosting panels for a lot of the documentary.org documentaries, IDA, and I've seen some extraordinary films. So it'll be a tough year for a documentary to take that. We'll probably talk about it soon.
Yeah, I got a couple others here too.
You got a couple more before you go?
Yep. No, carry on.
Well, I got War for the Planet of the Apes, which is interesting to me in that this is becoming something of a cult classic already. Matt Reeves from people love this movie. You know me, I'm an old school Planet of the Apes. You take a guy, a human, a man, you put him in a monkey suit. That's the way you make a Planet of the Apes movie, baby. You put a man in a monkey suit. This CGI stuff, Andy Strickland, I get it. It's the new technology. It's the way these things are done. I can't help it. Give me Claude Akins in a gorilla suit.
Yeah.
Looking more or less like Claude Akins. Nevertheless, even though he's in the gorilla suit. Nevertheless, this film is very popular. People are liking it quite a lot. 4K RC, all kinds of things on here. the Blu-ray and the 4K DVD. So, if you're into this sort of reboot of the Planet of the Apes movies, I guess this is one for you.
What I liked about this, and again, I'm biased because Matt's a friend, but and I do have a ritual now. Every time I see one of Matt's Planet of the Apes movies on the Fox lot, I go into the screening room and I text him. And I say, I'm on the lot. I'm looking at some crap movie. It better be good. And the last time I didn't even realize it because I went and saw it with another friend of ours from high school. He said, "Oh yeah, Matt's in Germany right now." I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize that." And of course, a text came right back, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, what time is it in Germany? It's like midnight." He's returning my texts at midnight. So anyway,
funny.
But yeah, that's a running joke. What I like about this film is that what he basically did was he decided he was going to make a John Ford Western out of it.
Yeah,
and which I think is very wise. And
it's high noon, more or less.
In many respects, it borrows from a lot of different things. But yeah, it's a John Ford Western. It's a little bit of high noon. It's a solid film, and it didn't do as well as it probably could have. Mm-hmm. The whole summer was down for just about everything except for Wonder Woman, to be honest.
Yeah, it and Wonder Woman.
That's kind of it.
With the movies that made as much money as everybody anticipated that they were going to make.
Another quick doc here called Hans Richter, Everything Turns, Everything Revolves, by a documentarian named Dave Davidson. This is from First Run Features. And if you're not familiar with Hans Richter is a very particular art milieu. He's a painter. He was an experimental filmmaker from the Dadaist school, which I still don't understand. People have tried to explain it to me. I really don't get it. But that being said, a very interesting guy, very interesting art, very interesting aesthetic. And this is essentially this is looking at his life and work, interviewing the people that he was associated with. And a lot of stuff here that I thought was really, really interesting. I didn't realize that he fled the Nazis in 1941. I didn't realize that how many people he inspired. So I learned a lot in this, even though it's not my particular scene. A lot of interesting DVD bonus shorts here as well from the 1920s, and then a thing that's related to the film from 2012. So anyway, as far as art documentaries go, Hans Richter, Everything Turns, Everything Revolves, worth checking
out. Personal shopper. Olivia Sayers film.
Yeah.
Which I saw for the show. And, Kristen Stewart, the lead.
This is the Criterion release of it.
Criterion release. Yeah. Director approved. First of all, I rather enjoyed this movie. It's a fairly mysterious movie. We're following. That's what she is. She's playing a personal shopper. Yeah. She shops for all these sort of famous and important people. It's all in Europe. That's going on. There's a murder that happened. So there's a bit of a murder mystery going on in the film. And then there's also this sort of ghost story going on in this film too. Now it's all a bit twee and whatnot, but I do like her in this movie. I just like watching her.
She won an award at the Cannes Film Festival for this.
I like watching her roam around in this movie. She is becoming. I haven't always been a big fan.
Yeah, same here.
Haven't always. She's always been a bit a bit modern for me, particularly when she's playing something like the girl in the Twilight films or the Huntsman or something like that. But, she's sort of coming into her own. She was really, really good in American Ultra in this film, and I'm starting to dig that. Anyway, this is an interesting film. The Criterion Blu-ray edition of this. Not a whole lot on it, but some interesting things that you might want to check out.
3 documentaries here that are all movie related, all entertainment industry related, and the first one is so amazing. This is from the Milestone collection, the Milestone Cinematheque people, who we absolutely adore because they're so passionate about great movies and they do such great work restoring things. It's called The Champion, a story of America's first film town. And this is all about Fort Lee, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And there's only been one documentary previously that dealt with Fort Lee, which that came out from Image, gotta be like 15 years ago. And most people don't even know this story. It is amazing. It was just a little New Jersey town which is just right close to New York.
Yeah, right across.
Just right across there. And in the early days, kind of at that transition moment when you were going from when the movies were becoming, just when shorts are starting, short silents are becoming kind of a thing.
They're moving out of the Nickelodeon, the things that people watch, one at a time and becoming theatrical things. Yeah,
this is when it kind of for a brief moment became the first Hollywood.
Oh yeah,
and it's really an incredible story. I mean, it is.
People think about all of those old guys moving out from New York. Yeah. No, most of them moved out from New Jersey.
Yeah.
The first woman who ever had a movie studio, Alice Guy Blanchet, a French woman.
Yeah.
The studio that she owned was in New Jersey.
Yep. And what's sort of at the center of this is about the fight to save what is the last remaining studio of that era, which it would be sort of the oldest actual studio in America. Mm-hmm. Might even be the oldest studio in the world still extant. I don't know if any of the original Japanese studios are still around from Shunkiku and those guys, but it's really an incredible bit of history, and it includes there are 2 documentaries and 8 films on here. It's a 2-disc set. And there are some amazing films here that are restored. The Indian Land Grab from 1910. There is Flo's Discipline from 1912. These are mostly early Universal Victor films. Then there's an early Robin Hood from 1912. A lot of really interesting stuff. And there's even a Max Sennett film from 1912, an 8-minute Max Sennett single reeler, A Grocery Clerk's Romance. Really, really terrific. So interesting. You'll learn so much about the early parts of film history. It's really, really great. So, The Champion: A Story of America's First Film Town from the Milestone Cinematheque. Really, really great. Also done in collaboration with the Fort Lee Film Commission. It should be pointed out there is a Fort Lee Film Commission who continues to exist to this day. The other 2 docs, great one from PBS. Richard M. Sherman, Songs of a Lifetime. He's the last of the remaining Sherman brothers, the 2 guys who were Disney contract writers who wrote all those great Disney songs, most famously all the songs in Mary Poppins. That's what really everyone really, really remembers. The Sherman brothers, just legendary figures. And this is directed and produced by Don Hahn, who does a fantastic job. And, Richard Sherman lost his brother many, many years ago, but he's carrying the torch for their legacy, and that he is still with us is sort of extraordinary. And it's 60 minutes long, should be longer, but what a wonderful tribute. And then lastly of these Hollywood docs is Harold and Lillian, a Hollywood love story on Blu-ray. This was at the Cannes Film Festival. This was at a number of other doc festivals. And this is essentially the story of Harold and Lillian Michelson, or Michelson, or however you want to pronounce it. But Harold and Lillian Michelson, who may not be really household names, but they worked as storyboard artists and researchers for some of the greatest filmmakers of all time. And it's sort of extraordinary when you realize that how much they contributed to the movies, not just the directors they worked with, but how much they were responsible for the way the scripts were developed, the way the visuals were developed. It's a great, we talked about, nobody in Hollywood is professional. We should say it's the above the line people who are always so unprofessional, the writers, the actors, the producers, the directors. Once you get to the below the line people, electricians, gaffers, craftsmen, carpenters, editors, sound mixers, storyboard artists, all of these people, the people at this level, they are just workaday working stiffs. It's a job. They take it very seriously, and they're the people that I most enjoy hanging out with because they just, production managers and those kinds of people, and that's who you're dealing with here. I mean, it's amazing. I will tell you none of the filmmakers that they were involved in, but it's a love story set against the beginning, against the backdrop of Hollywood and some great movies, and it's a wonderful, wonderful idea for a documentary. You learn about people, you learn about the movies. It's really worth checking out. It is Harold and Lillian, a Hollywood love story by an amazing filmmaker named Daniel Rame. It's definitely worth it.
Outstanding. Oh, Annabelle.
Yeah, didn't see
Creation.
Did not see this.
This is Annabelle Creation.
Yeah.
It's part of the Annabelle series of films, of course.
But it all starts with
The Conjuring.
The Conjuring.
Yeah.
Now, so this is like a spin-off series from The Conjuring, because Annabelle was a thing in The Conjuring, and then we had The Conjuring 2, but then we had Annabelle, and
Which
now we have
goes
another
back to
Annabelle.
where the doll came. This movie's about where Annabelle comes from in the first place.
Okay, so these are all part of the extended Conjuring cinematic universe,
as they say.
Good
which and actually is pretty good. All of these films have actually been pretty good. We're past Halloween now. But nevertheless, if you're into horror and you're into good horror, these films all sort of work together well. Get the whole dadgum set and check them out. This one has some nice special features on it. Conjuring the universe, so it speaks to the other films. A couple of short films and some deleted scenes in a featurette, along with, of course, a director's commentary. So Annabelle, Creation, Blu-ray DVD. We've also got The Good Catholic, which is a lovely family film, not particularly good. Danny Glover and a few faces that you know. It's about a guy. He's a perfectly lovely Catholic priest. He loves God. He's committed to God. A really pretty girl moves to town and starts going to the church. What's he gonna do?
I hate this movie.
Yeah, well,
I didn't like this at all.
From the director of Hoosiers and Rudy. So there's a certain amount of filmic quality here, but narratively, this film is so obvious that its obviousness is obvious.
It uses it starts with, and then it uses the confessional as kind of a cutesy, as a meet cute romantic comedy thing. And I guess look, I'm not Catholic, but that just strikes me as what?
Yeah,
really? I don't see the irony is not making me swoon.
Indeed.
Anyway, did you have to talk about this on radio?
No,
because I think this was part of my week, and then I think they shuffled the date, and anyway,
and then it slipped away from you, John C. McGinley, and all that kind of stuff there.
Oh, Danny Glover, why can't you? Anyway, whatever.
Well, no, Danny Glover can't play bad guys anymore.
And John C. McGinley, all he ever plays are like eccentric oddballs. Like his character here is exactly the guy that he played on the
show?
Medical show.
Oh, yeah. Was it House or the other one? Grey's Anatomy.
Not Grey's. No. The comedy that he where.
Oh, Scrubs.
Scrubs. Thank you.
He was the Scrubs. I always got all three of those mixed up.
Yeah.
Anyway, one more here. Person to Person. This is one of those several couples in New York films over the course of a day, how they interact in their lives, and this Michael Cera sort of at the center of it all, as he hustles around trying to collect records and this kind of thing. It's a perfectly neat little New York-y sort of movie. Special features, you have an interview with the direction, Dustin G. Defa, I think it's his name, D-E-F-A, Defa.
I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, neat little New York independent film. I like those kind of movies, so I have no complaints there.
Yeah. A couple of documentaries over here that are going to make you really depressed about the world, but I'll get through them quickly. One is Meat, a story of sustainable food. I have seen so many of these documentaries now about how everything we put into our bodies is just poison and horrible, and fats and sugars.
Started
and
with
meats
Food Inc. a few
Food
years
Inc.
ago.
Food Inc. turned my sister-in-law vegetarian, by the way. So anyway, this continues that thing, and it's going to make you want to starve yourself to death. I'm not going to deny you that. It's on Blu-ray, I think, just to make it more graphic, to make the animals look more real, so that you just feel worse about wanting to have anything to do with about eating them. But the what is interesting about this is not the guilt trip that it lays on you, which I'm never a fan of, but is the issue of sustainability, and that is where it gets interesting. I'd love to see sort of a contrary point of view, just to know if, are the numbers, are the assumptions, is the science, being skewed any? But nonetheless, it is presented in a very persuasive way, and it is for people who want to be completists about this genre, this subgenre of documentary. It's worth checking out. It is also worth noting that this is a New Zealand production, and food in New Zealand, sustainability in New Zealand is a big deal because it's an island. They have to sort of have a very robust economy that is very centered on their ability to feed themselves. So, New Zealand doesn't really have, to my knowledge, any huge local trading partners other than Australia.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. So, it's a very self-sustaining society. And then there's also Injecting Aluminum, which is from Cinema Libre. And this is this is really worth checking out because the issue here has to do with vaccines and the fact that there are heavy metals, namely aluminum, in a lot of vaccines. And this is something that we've actually started to do in my family because I have a daughter. I have a 4-year-old kid. And when you get vaccinated, you sort of want, well, is there mercury? Are there vaccines in the vaccines? Are there heavy metals? You start to become very curious about what is in the vaccines, and that's a big deal. So the documentary is Injecting Aluminum. Definitely worth checking out. You want to be at least informed about it so that you can talk to your doctor about it, and that's everything. Yes.
Dave made a maze. This was a neat little movie about a guy who builds this maze. He's an artist and he's frustrated because he's not making any headway. He's not doing any good, and he builds this maze. And it gets a little fantastical. It's kind of like those sort of middle 80s movies, Goonies and all that kind of stuff. Only a little bit darker than that. And he goes into this maze. He builds it in his living room. Except for it seems to be kind of like the TARDIS in Doctor Who. It seems to be bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And there are all kinds of things in there of his own making, probably stuff that comes from his mind. And his girlfriend goes into the maze and gets lost, and his friends and people get killed in the maze. And anyway, it's sort of neat and fantastical. I rather enjoyed it. On this Blu-ray, you've got some behind-the-scenes features, including a featurette and a couple other things, including a commentary from the director of the movie. Dave made a maze.
And then we have Revelator, which is an interesting little independent film, essentially about a beautifully made, by the way. It's low budget and nicely shot and nicely put together. The director and producer and writer and star and editor of the movie, which tells you a lot about the level of budget, is Javon Auken, who for one of these one-man indie deals, it's probably pretty it's impressive. I mean, that he pulls it all off. But I think would have been a better film if he'd have let some other people wear the hat. He does everything except be his own cinematographer. So he plays he's a psychic who sees dead people.
Yeah.
Right. And but he's not like a hi, I'm a famous psychic, I see dead people. He's a messed up guy. He's kind of down and out. He's it's about the dark side of being a psychic, and
it's a little noir-y, a little thrillery. It's not a very well told story. It's a good looking film, but it's considering what he did and what the odds he faced in putting it together, I would say I look forward to seeing more films from him in the future. I can't totally recommend this to people, but I do hope that he makes more money and makes more movies and is able to kind of keep this career going, because I want to see what else he does in the future. I kind of feel like this is not quite there, almost like this is his student film. So if you're interested in the work of Javon Auken, check out Revelator. Otherwise, let's see what he does next. Yes.
All right. Let's get into some television. We've got a whole lot of TV here. Tim, let's start talking for a second about this extremely unusual television oddity. Of all the TV Jackson-related stuff, this thing is just completely bizarre. Michael Jackson searching for Neverland.
Yeah.
So I guess anything is an improvement over the Joseph Fiennes thing.
Yeah, which I still think in the context of a comedy. It is okay for Joseph Fiennes to play Michael Jackson. It just better be funny. That's all.
So this is basically the final days of Michael Jackson, who is performed here by Navi, who I'm not familiar with, but apparently he
looks a lot like Michael Jackson, though.
He's a Michael Jackson
impersonator,
tribute artist.
Tribute artist. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, which means you're an impersonator. But they call him a tribute artist, which fair enough.
He's only ever been in projects where he played Michael Jackson.
Anyway, so this is just only the last 2 years of his life, and
mostly sort of told from the point of view of his bodyguards and people who saw him every day.
It's still I just wonder about Lifetime has a very interesting profile, and they're trying to get outside of just the these sort of beleaguered women movies and tell some more interesting stories, but they don't spend a whole lot of money on them, or else they really constrain the scale. And this is one of those. But.
Yeah. But Lifetime has been building up a library now, an archive, a library of about 30 years now.
Yeah,
I mean that's enough of an archive to start your own streaming service.
Yes, it is.
When you start going that deep.
Let's see. We got a couple of some British things here. Humans 2.0 is the story of people in a kind of a futuristic scenario who find themselves in, I guess, a Terminator-y kind of situation where the quote unquote synths in their lives begin to acquire consciousness, and it's humans versus AIs, and it's
part Westworld, part Blade Runner, part all of this kind of stuff. It asks some sort of interesting questions about what makes us human. Sort of the same questions at the center of some of that stuff. Yeah. And what we should do when we come to know that these things that we've built
are after us,
or at least paying attention to us. Actually paying attention to us. I watched 5 or 6 episodes of that, but sort of floated away from it for no particular good reason. Actually,
8 episodes here, so we'll see where it goes in the future. It certainly seems interesting and promising. Midsomer Murders. There's no reason to keep drilling into this. This is series 19, part 2. This thing's been around for 20 years. And some, it's two very lengthy mysteries here for a total of about 3 hours worth of mystery. Nicely put together, beautifully transferred to Blu-ray. And last week we made mention of the wonderful Simon Callow in reference to Brigadoon. Simon Callow shows up in one of these as well, and he's just absolutely fantastic. I never get tired of Simon Callow. These are the Midsomer Murder Mysteries, Series 19, Part 2. Continues to be a very, very sharp show.
Orphan Black season 5.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, this series that I started, I think 2013 or so is when it first started, and it just completely captivated me. And the way it sort of meticulously walks its way forward, as it gives you more and more of these characters and this deep plot and all of these sort of internecine developments, and Tatiana Maslany, who's just absolutely fantastic in this movie. I mean, what a gem! Playing so many different various versions of herself, her sister, her genetic twins, who are. So it's really sort of neat. So it's a show that I thoroughly enjoy. I'm watching the current season now, as a matter of fact. In any case, special features include closer looks, Island of Lost Souls, the epic clone shot, clone centric, the beginning and the end, and Out of Black. It's a really, really neat show. If you haven't been watching Orphan Black and you don't feel like streaming it, just pick it up from the BBC on Blu-ray, season 5. Together we are one.
Season 1 of Marcella, which I actually kind of discovered by accident on Netflix, and I just I can't stop watching it. 8 episodes on 2 discs here from Acorn. This is a UK show that stars, the reason that I can't stop watching this, Anna Friel. I adore Anna Friel. I don't know why she never became a bigger star, but I'm just thrilled that she's still out there and doing stuff. She's just, Anna Friel is the best. I love her in everything she does. And, Pushing Daisies was kind of a high point for her in her American career. She did a thing with Sherm. She did that show with Sherm, didn't she?
Oh, yeah. What was that American Odyssey?
Yes, it was American Odyssey. Yeah, that's right. Which just didn't last very long either. But anyway, she's fantastic. She plays a police detective whose marriage has collapsed, and now she's, she was not on the force while she was married, and now she wants to get back into the game as a way of kind of coping with the destruction of her marriage. And she doesn't necessarily pick up on new cases. She goes back to her old cold cases, right? So it's a fascinating character, and she's really unstable and has all kinds of issues. And I think it's just absolutely terrific. I think it's a really, really great show. Highly recommended. Marcella, season 1. Dying to see where this goes in the future. 8 episodes, really good.
Outstanding. Class, which is an interesting series of BBC that is from the creators of Doctor Who, and indeed the series lives inside the Doctor Who universe. A couple of months from now, we're going to have ourselves a female Doctor Who. It's only been 60 years, so good. But this is a neat little film. As a matter of fact, when I watched the debut episode of this film, Peter Capaldi, the current Doctor up until now anyway, is in the first episode of this. This is season 1. So to this set, you get to check out how it all gets started, get the feel for how it exists inside the Doctor Who universe. And the narrative is pretty good too. What we have are 4 young students at this academy in the UK in London, and their teacher, one of their teachers, who is in fact an alien. And in fact, a couple of these students are aliens. Some of them don't even know that they're aliens. And it's interesting. And it deals with time travel and other dimensions and all kinds of neat stuff that geeks like me thoroughly love. So check it out, from the world of the Doctor Who universe, Class, season 1. A few bonus features on this too, including some outtakes and deleted scenes.
Teen Wolf season 6 part 2 continues to be a thing. It's sort of amazing to me. This is a little bit like Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
it's
right?
the exact same thing.
It was a movie. It was okay. It had a thing, but
there was a sequel movie with Jason Bateman.
Teen Wolf 2.
And then X number of years later,
they turn it into a show on MTV, and it becomes a thing.
Yeah, which is nothing remotely like either one of the 2 movies.
No, that's it.
Other than that there was a teenage wolf in it.
Utterly bizarre. So anyway, here we are. We're in season 6. I don't know what else I can tell you about season 6, part 2, the second half of season 6. Let me try. You know what, Tim? For 5.5 seasons, this was a terrible show. But son of a bitch, the second half of season 6 is amazing.
I'm always amazed by shows like these insanely sort of mediocre, usually sitcoms, sometimes hour-long shows, but usually sitcoms, that have insanely long runs, 6, 7, 8, 9, according to Jim.
Yeah.
Apparently ran for something like 13 years. And I'm like, what? Jim Belushi show. And there it was. And that's another one of them,
I don't get it. I really don't get it. But anyway, so there it is. It's Teen Wolf.
The Good Place, sitcom, first season, Ted Danson, Christian Bale. This show is funny. It's about a girl who dies and she goes to heaven, but she's a terrible, terrible girl and should have went to hell, but somebody made a mistake. And thus she is in heaven, or the good place, as they say, the good place, wreaking havoc, but trying to be a better person. Ted Danson, again, we think of Ted Danson, we think of Sam Malone. Ted Danson had another show on the air. I think he played a doctor or something in the show. I never watched it. That show was on the air for 6 or 7 seasons. Becker is the name of it.
Becker, yes. Becker. Oh my gosh, I forgot about Becker.
6 or 7 seasons.
The complete Becker came out like last year or something. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And I'm completely. I'm just saying that there was a time in my life when nothing ever appeared on television, certainly broadcast television, and probably the early days of cable television, that I didn't at least know about.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, those days are gone. I would pick up the TV guide for the new seasons. The fall preview TV guide issue, and I would read that thing cover to cover 3 or 4 times, and I was an expert on every show that was new that season.
Commit it to memory.
Yeah, that's anyway. So MHZ Networks, who is putting a lot of stuff on their streaming channel, still putting out some really cool DVDs, and one of them is a French crime series called Caïn. They've released 2 seasons of this now. And it's really quite cool. It's kind of like it's like a French combination of Ironside and I don't know. I want to say Mannix. It's like Ironside meets Mannix in France. Anyway, Caïn is a police captain, and he's in a wheelchair. He's disabled, but he's obviously a brain like mad. It's sort of like if Mannix were Ironside. That's what this is. He's really sharp. Or maybe even Magnum PI. I don't know. Anyway, Caïn is a sharp show. There are 2 seasons here. If you're going to get into this, you really do want to get into the second season. It's because it further evolves the character and gets into some really cool things. It's really, really cool. And what I particularly love is that it's shot in Marseille, because I lived in Marseille, and I love Marseille as a backdrop for a show. And what I especially love is that there's a Netflix show with Gerard Depardieu called Marseille, which is shot in Marseille, which is not good. No. It's just not good at all. Like I watched 2 episodes of that, and I want to just shoot myself. I just thought, this is boring me stiff. Caïn, quite the opposite. Really cool show. Beautifully shows off Marseille. Uses the locations to great effect. And then we've also got Inspector Winter, which is a Scandinavian cop show. Very kind of. I feel like Mads Mikkelsen should be showing up at any given moment. It's a Swedish show, but apparently it's very popular all over Scandinavia. And it's kind of like a really tough, icy cold noir procedural show. A little bit too icy for my taste, actually, but still very well written, very well nicely, well put together. Solid production value. We've also got Paris, the Great Saga, which is this is a little bit of a diversion for MHZ. This is just basically a documentary 3D CG look at the history of Paris. Very nicely produced. Not a lot of stuff here that I didn't know, but I lived in France, so I guess I kind of, all this stuff kind of seeped in through osmosis. But if you don't know the history of Paris, it's really worth checking out. It's very nicely put together. The CG animation stuff is very cool. It's highly informative, and you can watch it in French or English. So you don't need to worry about having to watch the thing in subtitles necessarily, although you can. And then Murders at Barlume is an Italian show that's a little bit offbeat for my taste. I didn't quite get it. It takes place in a small Tuscan village, and it's kind of a little bit like I don't know. I want not Exotic Marigold Hotel, or I don't even want to say Green Acre. You know what it is? It's like Newhart. That's what it is. A little bit like Newhart.
Bob and Emily Newhart?
Yeah, the second Newhart show.
Oh, the other one.
The New England bed and breakfast thing, except not a 3-camera sitcom. That's a little bit what it is. Anyway, it's beautiful. It's beautiful surroundings, but it's kind of a genre splicing thing. There's a little bit of procedural crime and a little bit of comedy and a little bit of just enjoy the Tuscan settings, and it's kind of a curious genre. I guess they do that on Italian television. And if you are an Agatha Christie fan, you will probably thoroughly enjoy this trio of adapted mystery novels from Camilla Läckberg. Her 3 novels, The Preacher, The Stonecutter, and The Jinx. I am not familiar with the books necessarily, but the Swedish adaptations of these are pretty engaging and very nicely done. I think the Jinx is the one that feels coolest. It has kind of a Hitchcockian vibe to it. But otherwise, it's really it's great kind of procedural mystery and really gritty stuff. And Swedish television doesn't pull any punches. It's much better than American procedural television that way.
Yeah. Reign, the 4th and final season, which I thought was actually a pretty good show, mostly about Mary Queen of Scots and the intrigue in the French court. But of course involved Catherine de' Medici and Queen Elizabeth the First and all of those sort of internecine relationships. It's all sort of done up like sort of fancy Melrose Place set in the French court.
Sure,
but nevertheless interesting, and they get a lot of the history right. This is the 4th and final season of Reign on DVD. Pretty good. I rather enjoyed that quite a bit. So if you haven't seen the 4th season of that yet. And then The Bridge, the original The Bridge, which I thought was also fascinating. There, of course, is The Bridge that was done on American television, which was set on the border between the United States and Mexico, a notorious border for all kinds of reasons. This one, of course, is set on the border between Denmark and Sweden when a body is found on a bridge halfway between Denmark and Sweden. These 2 detectives, one Danish, one Swedish, have to share jurisdiction and figure out what's going on. And then as the rest of the series goes on, we get into human trafficking and all sorts of things. This is series 3 of The Bridge, the original series, Danish, Swedish series.
Yeah.
Very, very good. And I got to tell you, better than the equivalent American show set between the United States and Mexico. Much better.
Another very cool MHZ show. And then the last of the MHZ titles here is what I'm going to dovetail into the next thing. This is interesting cross-cultural current stuff here. Agatha Christie's Family Murder Party, which is a French adaptation of Agatha Christie, which is an Hercule Poirot.
It's a Poirot.
It's a Poirot.
Okay, yeah.
So Agatha Christie, British novelist, wrote about a Belgian detective, Hercule Poirot, a French speaker, in English, which has now been adapted by the French.
Interesting.
I find that really fascinating. In any case, it's really not bad. It's long. It's very, very long. It's 370 minutes, which is a little bit too long for my taste.
Was it originally a miniseries or a television movie?
Well, this is a miniseries. This is definitely a miniseries. And it is a little bit too long, but it is extremely well done. And it's interesting seeing it in French, to be honest. It just makes it kind of cool and authentic. So it's interesting. The story here is actually a prequel to The Little Murders of Agatha Christie. And I find it interesting because we are only weeks away from Kenneth Branagh's Murder on the Orient Express. Which
I am really looking forward to.
So am I.
I got to tell you, the trailers are fantastic.
Yeah.
It looks extraordinarily. It looks David Lean beautiful.
It does, and I've seen that story twice before. Obviously on PBS, in there as part of their Poirot version, which is kind of scaled down, and then obviously the old original movie with
78, 79
with Peter Ustinov playing Poirot, which is fine. It was fun. But
some beautiful scenes in that movie when they're outside the train and all that steam.
Yeah,
there's some really beautiful moments in that movie.
So I'm really excited to see what Branagh does with this one. I really am. That's
and Johnny Depp playing something like a person.
Yeah, right. And then we have the Hunchback of Notre Dame, which again is this weird thing. It's like it takes place in France. But yet this is an English language. They've all been really English language adaptations for the most part. This is an English language adaptation that was done in 1982 with Anthony Hopkins as the Hunchback, and Derek Jacobi is supporting. And you know what? I had no idea that Anthony Hopkins played the Hunchback.
You know what? Sometimes when I think about guys like him,
yeah.
And why they're so good and how they got so good.
Yeah.
Well, that's how they got good.
Yeah.
They've been doing every kind of part, every role that you can think of for their entire career. It's a British thing, Since he was 17 years old, there is no character in literature that Anthony Hopkins has probably not played.
I want them to do an actual French production of this now with Gérard Depardieu playing the Hunchback, because he has never been more obese or grotesque than he is now. Yeah. And I say that with all the love in my heart because I love him, but he is physically perfect to play the part now.
He went all Brando. My Green Card, I interviewed him. He did the junket for that. Andy McDowell movie, the Green Card interview. He was starting to get a little big then. And that's about 90. That might be 90.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact.
I think it was.
And he just went all Brando.
Well, anyway. And then as we start to wrap the show up, Ancient Aliens, Season 10, Volume 1. You know what, Tim? The first 9 seasons of Ancient Alien, terrible. But the first half of Season 10 is amazing. I mean, this show is what it is. I don't know that there's enough archaeology left on the planet to sustain any more of this, but somehow they keep finding it.
With all that filmmaking going on, you'd think we'd have actually tracked down one of those aliens.
Eric Von Daniken is looking down from the pearly gates thinking, props. You guys, I was able to fill one book and one movie, but seriously, you guys rock. Like, even I remember when the sequel to Chariots of the Gods came out, the Outer Space Connection, I was, I don't know, what am I, 6, 7 years old or something? And I see it with my father, and even at that time, I kind of looked at him like, oh, all right, you're running on fumes with this one. This is a stretch. You got my 250, and you ripped me off. And then the definitive collection, Ernie Kovacs, Take a Good Look. Ernie Kovacs is just one of the greatest comic geniuses in history. He changed television, changed it forever.
You don't watch Saturday Night Live now if Ernie Kovacs don't do what Ernie Kovacs did.
That's it. I mean, without Ernie Kovacs, there's no Conan O'Brien. Yeah. There's no David Letterman.
There would have been no Laughing. There would have been. I mean. He inspired people who inspired other people. He's like, six generations removed from
Key and Peele.
Key and Peele, yeah,
Key and Peele.
exactly.
It's just what he did was a brand of comedy that just opened the gate for so much else. Anyway, this is all 49 existing episodes of the original game show that Ernie Kovacs hosted, which was really not even, it didn't even matter. It was a game show. It's an Ernie Kovacs show. It's an excuse for him to do what he does. And it's great. When they say 49 existing episodes, that's because there are episodes that are lost.
Kinescope, I think they were selling,
So we don't have everything, but we have a lot of really great stuff. And, it's just amazing. You have to see it to understand what he did in terms of sight gags and working with spontaneity and guests, and it's really an extraordinary thing. So this is from Shout. Take a good look. The definitive collection, 49 episodes from a strange, bizarre, legendary, surreal moment in television history and in game show history, to be honest. So it's you have to see this to believe it. If you have any of the other Ernie Kovacs stuff, you've got to get this. You have to be a completist.
Yes.
All right, with that, Tim, we're going to let you go. We've had a good run this week. Let's see how things come. We want to encourage you to go to the CineGods site, cinegods.com. Please also like the CineGods Facebook page and follow it. We're going to be moving all of this stuff pretty quickly into high gear. We've only soft launched the CineGods site.
There's a lot of good stuff there. Some great articles, some great essays about current events, movie reviews.
I just did a thing on the 50 greatest screenwriters of all time, overlooked by that other New York and Vulture piece that was on the 100 best screenwriters of all time. So we're going to start ramping that thing up. So please go check it out. Send us feedback to gods@digigods.com. For now, we'll have other email addresses going forward. We'll move all this pretty expeditiously into the future, and we do have a gift guide holiday show coming up end of November. We will tell you more on that in the next couple of weeks. So for now, we will see you later.
All righty, baby.